beekeeping also called, beekeeping is also called apiculture. Apiculture. Beekeeping is also called apiculture. What is apiculture? Apiculture is growing or maintenance of honeybees. Maintenance of honeybees and honey hives. Maintenance of honeybees and honey hives for the product of honey. That is called apiculture. Apiculture means growing or maintenance of honeybees or honey hives, growing and maintenance of honeybees or honey hive to the product of, for the product of honey is called apiculture. In apiculture, the bee name is Apis indica. The bee name is Apis indica. And Apis indica is the common honeybee. And what are the uses of honeybees? First one, honeybees are used as a pollinators. Honeybees are used as pollinators in many plants. And second one, maintenance of honeybees in crop fields increase pollination efficiency. In crop fields, pollination efficiency is increased by honeybees. So honeybees are pollinating agents for many plants, and maintenance of honeybees nearby the crop fields helpful for increasing the pollination efficiency. And honey contains lot of nutritive value. Honey has more medicinal value. Honey has a good nutritive source. Honey is a good nutrition. And in our indigenous medicine system like Ayurveda, honey is widely used. Honey is used as medicine. And in our indigenous medicine system. Honey is used as an important product for medicine. Next, honey wax. Honey wax is very, very important. Honey wax is the one. This is in the total honey hive or in the honeybees. So in the total honey hive, total honey, nectar, all this nectar, they will collect nectar from the flowers and they will make it honey. Nectar is different and honey is different. What is nectar? Nectar is the raw material of honey. When the nectar is collected from flowers, and that will be converted into honey by honeybees. When the saliva is added to that, so then it will be converted into honey. And honey is not a product which is directly produced by honeybees. Bee wax is the product directly produced by honeybees. And bee wax is used in cosmetic industry. And other industries, cosmetic industries. Next one, bee poison. Bee poison is used as medicine for, very good medicine for arthritis. For arthritis, bee poison is very good medicine. So these are the uses and advantages of apiculture. First one is, honeybees are used as pollinators in many plant species, and honeybees nearby the crop fields, growing of honeybees nearby the crop fields increase the pollination efficiency. Next, honey is a good nutritive value. Honey has very good nutritive value. Next one, honey is used as a medicine in indigenous medicine system. In like Ayurveda, honey is mostly used in indigenous medicines. Next, honey wax. What is honey wax? Honey wax is the material produced by honeybees only. So the honey wax is mostly used in cosmetic industry. Honey is mostly used in cosmetic industry. And honeybee poison Honeybee poison is used as a very good medicine for arthritis. Arthritis means joint pains. Arthritis means joint pains. Arthro means joint, itis means inflammation. Arthritis. So that is for arthritis, honeybee poison is used as a good medicine for arthritis. So these are the advantages of honeybee. In the honeybee, we know already that is queen bee. One is queen bee and drones and worker bees are there. Drones and worker bees are there. So these are totally 3 types of bees are present in honey hive. Honey hive. Queen is the main. So it lays eggs. It lays eggs. Queen lays eggs. So then this is queen. Queen lays eggs. When queen is died, then any one of other female bees, one bee act as a queen and it lay eggs. And this is, and drones are male honeybees and they used to protect the honey hive. And next one, worker bees. The worker bees are the female bees. They are used to gathering the honey. They are used to gathering the honey. And drones is for production. Drones are for protecting honeybee. So this is the nature of honeybees. In the honey hive, there are 3 types of honeybees are there. There are 3 types of honeybees are there. The first one is queen. So queen is one. In one honey hive, one queen bee is there. So that queen bee is quietly, morphologically, it is somewhat different from other female bees. Morphologically, the queen is different from other bees. And the queen is having larger brood. The queen is having larger brood compared to all other females. The next, queen function is to lay eggs. To laying eggs. Queen function is to laying eggs. If the queen is died, then what happens? The remaining worker bees are there. In these worker bees, any one of the female worker bee will come and act as queen. And next one, drones. Drones are the male honeybees and these drones are used to protecting the honey hive. So this is the nature of honeybees. So next, points to remember successful beekeeping. Points to follow for successful beekeeping. Successful beekeeping. Successful beekeeping. Points to follow for successful beekeeping. First one, understanding the nature of honeybees. Understanding the nature of honeybees. Understanding the nature of honeybees. So that I told you already. So there are 2 types of honeybees are there. The first one is Apis indica and second one is Apis dorsata. Apis indica is a normal one. It is not aggressive. Apis indica is very soft honeybee and it is not much aggressive as much as Apis dorsata. But Apis dorsata is highly aggressive. Apis dorsata is highly aggressive honeybee. So this type of nature and what type of honeybees, how they will behave. So this type of nature we have to understand. For understanding the nature of honeybees, for successful beekeeping, we must have to understand the nature of honeybees. Means what type of honeybees? Male honeybee function, female honeybees function, which one produces egg and which time it will produce egg. So these are the things we must have to understand. Second one is, after understanding, second one is selection. Selection of place. Selection of place or location. Selection of location for beekeeping. Selection of location is very, very important. Selection of location is very, very important because nearby apiculture plants, so definitely flowering plants should be there. So nearby the flowering plants are there, then only we can get much more honey. So that selection of location is very, very important. Selection of location for beekeeping. Selection of location for beekeeping. Next one is collection of, third one is collection of swarms. Collection of swarms. Swarms means group of honeybees. Group of bees is called group of bees. Honeybees is called group of honeybees is called swarms. Collection of swarms or catching of honeybees or collection of swarms, the third one. And fourth one is maintenance. Maintenance of honeybees in different season. Maintenance of honeybees. Maintenance of honeybees in different season. Maintenance of honeybees in different seasons. In different seasons. Maintenance of honeybees in different seasons. So that is another one, because in different seasons, so honey availability will be different. So that the maintenance is very, very important, and according to different situations and different seasons. And last one is, and collection, maintenance, and last one is handling and collection of collection of honey. Handling and collection of honey and bee wax. Collection of honey and bee wax. So these are the totally points to be remembered or to be followed for successful beekeeping. First one is understanding the nature of honeybees. So different type of honeybees are different. So now we have seen Apis indica and Apis dorsata. So this Apis dorsata is mostly grown on poisonous weeds. So this is more poisonous. This is more poisonous and aggressive. More poisonous and aggressive. So that is Apis dorsata. Also known as, this Apis dorsata is also known as rock bee. This Apis dorsata is also known as rock bee. Rock bee. Apis dorsata is also known as rock bee, and it is highly aggressive and it is highly poisonous. And second one, selection of location for beekeeping. Selection of location is very, very important. In which location, how much of amount of honey is to be collected. So in which location it is more suitable for honeybee or apiculture, we must have to understand. Third one is collection of swarms or collection of honeybees, catching of honeybees. Catching of honeybees or collection of swarms. Swarms means a group of honeybees. And next one, maintenance of honeybees in different seasons. So maintenance of honeybees in summer season, winter season, like in these seasons, how to maintain these honeybee hives, we must have to know. Next one, handling and collection of honeybee and bee wax. So for the collection of honeybee, it is somewhat difficult process. So that process we must have to understand how to collect the how to collect the honey and bee wax. Next, pisciculture. Pisciculture is one of the part in aquaculture. So pisciculture means catching and processing, and selling of fishes. And selling of fishes is called as catching, processing, and selling of fishes is known as pisciculture. The growth of pisciculture industry or this pisciculture industry is known as, development of pisciculture industry is known as Blue Revolution. Blue Revolution. Blue Revolution means development of increasing the production of fishes. Increasing the production of fishes. Like many revolutions are there, increasing production of fishes. Increasing production of fishes is known as Blue Revolution. And what is the importance of pisciculture? So pisciculture is important for food. So many people are using the fishes and other aquatic products as food material. And one more important thing is, it is one of the part in economy of our country. It is one of the part in economy of our country. And next one, exports and imports, all these things. So they are come under the economy of our country. Next, the third one is, and this industry is providing many jobs or employment for many people across the world. The pisciculture industry is providing employment for many people, especially the people, those who are nearby the coastal areas, their livelihood is fishing. These are the uses of pisciculture. So first one is fishes and other aquatic products are used as food material by many people across the world. And next one, fishing is the fishing, the pisciculture industry or fishing is one of the, it is a part of our Indian economy, because we are exporting many fishes from our country. And next, third one is, and it is providing employment to great number of people. It is providing employment to many people across the world, and especially the people, those who are nearby coastal areas, their livelihood is fishing. So now let us see blue revolution. What is blue revolution? Increasing the production of fishes is known as blue revolution. Next one is white revolution. What is white revolution? White revolution is increasing the products of milk. Increasing the products of milk is known as white revolution. Increasing. Next one is golden revolution. Golden revolution is increasing the production of oils. Increasing the production of oils is known as golden revolution. So based on their color. Next one, pink revolution. Pink revolution is increasing the production of prawns. Increasing the production of prawns is known as pink revolution. Next one is red revolution. Red revolution is increasing the products of meat. Increasing the meat and meat products is known as increasing the production of meat and meat products, known as red revolution. So white revolution for milk, golden revolution for oils, and pink revolution is for prawns, and red revolution is for meat. And green revolution for agriculture. Increasing the products of agriculture is known as green revolution. Increasing the products of agriculture is known as green revolution. Now let us discuss green revolution. Now let us discuss about green revolution. Green revolution. So revolution means nothing but here a great change in the productivity. Here revolution means a great change in the productivity. That is revolution. In terms of revolution means here in the agriculture, revolution means a great change in productivity. That is called that is revolution. Now green revolution means development of high yielding varieties of rice and wheat. High yielding varieties of rice and wheat to rice and wheat. Development of high yielding varieties of wheat and rice as a technique of plant breeding by using of plant breeding techniques to produce or lead to high productivity, to increase productivity. So this is called green revolution. What is green revolution? Green revolution is nothing but development of high yielding varieties of wheat and rice. By using of various plant breeding methods, by using of various plant breeding techniques to increase productivity. This is called green revolution. Development of high yielding varieties of wheat and rice by the using of various plant breeding techniques. By using of various plant breeding techniques to increase yielding, to increase productivity, or to increase yielding is known as green revolution. Once again, let us see. Green revolution means development of high yielding varieties of wheat and rice by using of various plant breeding techniques to increase productivity is known as green revolution. Now let us see what is breeding. Breeding means already we have discussed in animal breeding. So breeding is nothing but a purposeful manipulation of two organisms. A purposeful manipulation of two organisms. Here plant breeding means purposeful manipulation of two plants to create or to produce a new desirable plant. A new desirable plant is called breeding, plant breeding. In the plant breeding now, let us discuss what are the steps in plant breeding. Let us see now. What is breeding? Purposeful manipulation of two organisms to produce a new desirable plant is known as plant breeding. So now let us see what are the steps in plant breeding. Let us see. First one is collection of variability. The first one is collection of variability. Collection of variability is the first step in plant breeding technique. Collection of variability. Second one is evaluation, not evolution, evaluation of, see, evolution is different, evaluation means nothing but testing, examining. So that is evaluation of germplasm, and selection of parents, evaluation of germplasm and selection of parents, evaluation of germplasm and selection of parents. And third one is cross hybridization among selected parents, cross hybridization between selected parents, cross hybridization between selected parents. And fourth one is selection of superior recombinants, selection of superior recombinants, and last one is, first one collection of variability, and second one is evaluation of germplasm and selection of parents. Third one is cross hybridization among the selected parents and selection of superior recombinants, and selection and testing of superior recombinants, and testing, commercialization, release, and commercialization of new cultivars. These are the 5 steps in plant breeding. First one is collection of variability. What is collection of variability? For example, if you want to create a new plant, so already existing plant varieties information you should know. You should know the information of all existing plant varieties. For example, if you want to create a new variety of rice, you should know about all the existing varieties. Then only you can create a better variety. If you want to create the better variety, then you should know about the existing varieties. What is the ability of existing varieties? So that the existing varieties information if you know, then you can create a better variety. So that the collection of variability how to do. So collection of variability is the root of genetic breeding program. Collection of variability is the root of plant breeding program. This is the root, because from here only we can create a new plant. So because if you study about all the plants which are existing so far, so those plants information if you know, then you can create a new variety. So that you have to collect all these varieties. So all these varieties collection is known as germplasm collection. So germplasm collection. What is germplasm collection? First let us see germplasm collection. What is germplasm collection? Collection of all the diverse alleles of all the genes in a given crop is called germplasm collection. Collection of all the diverse alleles of all the genes in a given crop is known as germplasm collection. Collection of variability, it is the root of plant breeding program. Why? Because if you know about all the existing plants, then you can create a new plant. So that we have to collect all the varieties for each and every variety, so different alleles, we have to collect one plant. So that is called germplasm collection. The collection of all the diverse alleles of all the genes is known as germplasm collection. Sometimes the germplasm collection, we need to collect some of the wild plants also. Because the wild plants not require the support of human beings. They are having high resistant genes, drought resistant genes and disease resistant genes. They are having disease resistant genes, drought resistant genes and climatic temperature resistant genes. So because of all these resistant genes they are having, so that they are successfully growing even without the help of human being. Without help of the human being, they are even successfully growing. So that definitely what we have to understand here, they are having some of the better genes, compulsory they are having some of the better genes compared to our normal croplands. The normal croplands, we need to provide water, we need to provide fertilizer, we need to provide all other things like fencing, some etc. We need to provide pesticides, we need to remove that weed plants, all these things we have to do. Otherwise they cannot survive. But wild plants, they are surviving without having all these things. Without having human support, the wild plants are easily they are growing in roadsides. These plants are considered as gene banks. These plants are considered as gene banks. So we need to preserve the better genes if you found in the wild plants. Those plants also we need to preserve. Then, for example, if any crop plant doesn't have one particular feature, then that crop plant can be crossed with a wild plant. Then this cross plant we can get that particular nature. For example, one crop plant is not having disease resistance. Disease resistance is not there in one crop plant, for example. The crop plant is not having disease resistance. So when disease resistance is not there in the crop plant, then we have to cross this crop plant with a wild plant. Wild plant obviously they are having more disease resistance. So that the disease resistant gene may be transferred from wild plant to crop plant. So that it is necessary to preserve, collect and preserve the wild varieties of crop plants. So next, after completion of this collection of wild varieties, we need to collect all the varieties of plants, all the diverse alleles of all the genes in a given crop in a particular time is known as germplasm collection. So this germplasm collection is important for 1 mark or 2 mark question. This germplasm collection is very, very important. What is germplasm collection? Germplasm collection is nothing but the collection of all the diverse alleles of all the genes in a given crop is known as germplasm collection. So this is totally about collection of variability. So first thing we have to write is collection of variability is the root of genetic breed, collection of variability is the root of breeding program. Collection of variability is the root of breeding program, and collection of variability is, for collection of variability we need to collect all the plants with all the diverse alleles. This process is called as germplasm collection. And it is important to collect and preserve the wild plants because the wild plants are having good characters or better genes compared to the crop plants. So that is collection of variability. Next one is evaluation of germplasm and selection of parents. Evaluation of germplasm. Evaluation means what? Testing. Evaluation means testing. Testing of germplasm. So when we have collected many plants, when we have collected all the diverse alleles of all the genes in a given crop, that is called germplasm collection. So germplasm we have taken, in the germplasm we have to select for a better characters. Germplasm means thousands of plants you will collect. In that better variety plants we need to collect. So some of the plants you have collected in the process of germplasm collection. For the same plant, different types of plant. For example, you want to create a rice plant, new rice plant. Already nearby 1000 varieties of rice plants are there in our India. So these 1000 varieties of rice plants you need to take, you need to collect. So this collection is called germplasm collection. Are you understanding? This process is called germplasm collection. Okay, so you need to create one new variety of rice plant. You need to take all the existing rice plants. So that collection is called as germplasm collection. So germplasm, after collecting the germplasm, all these plants to be tested, to be evaluated or to be tested or to be examined for better varieties. Which plant is having? So every plant we have to take and record of every plant we have to maintain. For example, this plant is having 10 better characters. Plant B is having 20 better characters. Like that, for all the plants we need to record the better characters. So finally, 2 plants you have to select from these 2. And those 2 plants are known as parents. Evaluation of germplasm and selection of parents. Evaluation of germplasm and selection of parents. So next one is, after evaluation of germplasm, it is necessary to create multiple copies of the collected parents. Multiple copies of the gene, multiple copies of selected parents we need to take. Why? Because the crossing may be many times many times we need to do the cross, so that if possible the selected parents, same copies of selected parents we need to prepare. Same multiple copies of selected parents we need to prepare. And sometimes if it is needed, we need to produce pure lines. We need to produce pure lines. Pure lines means we know already. Due to continuous self-pollination, if you do, after some generations, we will get all the homozygous genes. So these type of plants are known as pure lines. If necessary, we need to create pure lines. This is evaluation of germplasm and selection of parents. The germplasm is a number of plants what we have collected. The germplasm to be evaluated for a better characters. From these all the plants, we need to select two plants which are having more better characters. We need to select. So selection of parents we have to do. So from this selection after selecting the parents, the better varieties, most better varieties we have to select. So these two, the most better varieties, two plants we have to select. These two we have to consider as parents. If possible, we need to create more number of copies of these two desirable plants. And sometimes if it is necessary, we need to create pure lines. That is evaluation of germplasm and selection of parents. Next one is cross hybridization. Two plants we have collected, for example, from the germplasm, thousands of plants. See, once again, let us see the example. We need to create one new plant of rice plant. We have collected already existing varieties. From all the existing varieties, we are feeling the two plants are better. So the two plants we have taken. These two plants we have to consider as parents. So these two plants are obviously sometimes both are bisexual only. Then which one is considered as male, which one is considered as female? Both are bisexual plants only. Which one is considered as male, which one is considered as female? From which plants we are taking pollen grains? That plant to be considered as male. From which plant we are considering female? From that plant stigma we have to dust these pollen grains. So this process to be done by using of artificial hybridization. Artificial hybridization we have studied already. So emasculation first of all we have to do in a female plant. Means female considering plant. The plant is bisexual only, but in that plant we are using only stigma, so that stamens we need to cut. So that is emasculation. After that we need to wrap one polythene bag. So the polythene bag it prevents contamination with other pollen grains. So that what are the pollen grains we need to. So already two plants you have selected. In that one plant is considered as female plant, one plant is considered as male plant. The pollen grains of this male plant has to be taken and they have to be dusted on stigma of female plant. Then this process is known as cross hybridization. The cross hybridization can be achieved by using of artificial hybridization technique. By using of artificial hybridization technique, we can achieve cross hybridization. In cross hybridization, one plant we must have to consider as male plant, one plant we must have to consider as female plant. From male considering plant, we need to take that pollen grains, and these pollen grains to be dusted in female plant stigma. So this process is called cross hybridization. After cross hybridization, selection of superior recombinant. So this is the prime process. Very, very important process. This is also very, very important process in this superior recombinants. For example, one example I will tell you. Two coconut trees we have taken. One coconut tree is having small size coconuts and number is more, size is less. In one coconut tree, the coconuts are size is less and number is more. More number of coconuts are producing, but the size of the coconut is very small. So here what we have to understand, one character is desirable. Which one is desirable? Number. Here number is desirable, but size is not desirable. And another coconut we have taken, sufficient amount of size is there, sufficient amount of water is there, but that plant is producing less number of coconuts. Then this what we can say, here also one desirable character is size and water, and another desirable and non-desirable character is number. Very less number is producing, but size is good, and the water is good. But here in the coconut, more number producing, but size is not desirable. So when you cross these two plants, what type of plants will be produced? One type of plant we may get with more number and big size. One plant we may get less number and less small size. That too possibility, this also possibility is there. To getting a better plant is also possibility is there. For getting a small, weak plant also possibility is there, right or wrong? At the same time, parental types also will be produced. There are totally 4 types of plants will produce. However, 2 parent types are there. And one variety is totally, 2 varieties are good. And another variety is 2 varieties are bad. Like that, 4 plants will be produced. Are you understanding? One parent A is having one desirable character, that is number. Parent B is having desirable character, that is size. Both parents are having one character, only desirable character. Now when the cross is happening between these 2 plants, what happened? 2 desirable characters one plant will produce. Same like plants like, same like parents, 2 plants may produce. And both are non-desirable characters with 1 plant may be produced. So that in these all the plants, which plant we have to take, that is important. So in this way, selection of superior recombinant. So this is the prime step in breeding process. So this prime step and this selection of superior recombinant, this superior recombinant is also called, heterosis. This superior recombinant is also called heterosis. This superior recombinant is also called heterosis or hybrid vigor. The superior recombinant is also called hybrid vigor because from hybridization process, sometimes a better plants also may produce. A weak plants also may be produced. So that the better plant, sometimes the better plant may be better than that of parents. A better plant may be, means a desirable plant may be more desirable than that of their parents. So the plant which is produced by these 2 parents may be better than these 2 parents. So this type of variety is known. For example, one parent is having 10 characters, one parent is having 5 better characters. Here 10 better characters are there, here 5 better characters are there. The plant is having more than 15 better characters. Then what we have to say? That is better than these 2 parents. Am I right? So this is known as heterosis. If a plant is better than a hybrid, which is better than its parents, a hybrid which is better than its parents is known as heterosis. We need to select that heterosis for the process, so that it is called prime process. So the heterosis, how to protect, how to preserve the heterosis? By vegetative reproduction only. The heterosis means already it is having more desirable characters than that of its parents. Okay, so that same characters we need to retain for several generations. So that we need to follow only vegetative reproduction. The heterosis means it is a better variety than that of the parents. Already parents are better among the germplasm. Germplasm we have collected, in the 2 better plants we have taken. From the 2 better plants we have crossed, a new plant is produced, heterosis. That is better than the parents. Means obviously this is better than all these plants. So that plant is, we need to preserve for many generations, means we need to do what type of reproduction? As a vegetative reproduction. By vegetative reproduction, a heterosis can be preserved for many generations. This is very, very important bit. Heterosis or hybrid vigor can be preserved by vegetative reproduction. Next, testing and releasing and commercialization of new cultivars. Testing, releasing and commercialization of new cultivars. So testing, how to test? First, the plant should be tested in scientific crop fields. For example, like Krishi Vigyan Kendra. Nearby in the Krishi Vigyan Kendra, under ideal fertilizer and temperature and pH and ideal fertilizer and ideal water irrigation conditions, the plants will be grown. The plants and new cultivars will be new plants, newly prepared plants or newly produced hybrids will be cultivated in farm fields, means scientific fields, scientific crop areas, croplands, scientific croplands. These new hybrids will be cultivated under ideal fertilizer and irrigation conditions. If the plant is grown successfully in that scientific croplands, then this plant will be sent to various parts across the country. In all the parts also, the plant is normally growing, then that plant is considered as a good hybrid. So then that plant will be released and commercialized, means selling into the market. This process is called testing and releasing and commercialization of new cultivars. First one hybrid is prepared. After cross hybridization, one new plant is came, that is called heterosis. Whether it will survive or not, we need to check. So that first what we have to do, this testing should be done in a scientific cropland under ideal fertilizing and water and other climatic conditions they will maintain in that farm fields. In that field, if the plant is successfully grown, then it will be sent to various locations of the country into the farmer fields. In the farmer fields, if they are normally grown, then the variety will be released into the market. This process is totally plant breeding. Now let us discuss about wheat and rice. Wheat and rice. One example let us take. In between 1900 to 2000, how the productivity changed in our India. Let us take. First one, wheat productivity. In 1900 it was only 11 million tons. 11 million tons. In before 1900. But after 2000, it was reached to 75 million tons. 75 million tons means the wheat productivity before 1900 year in our India, it was only 11 million tons per year. But after 2000, it was increased to 75 million tons. Means within this within this 100 years, what happened? Within this 100 years, actually, this is not 1900, this is 1960. Within this 40 years, what happened? Within this 40 years, it was reached to 11 million tons to 75 million tons. Means almost 64 million tons of wheat is increased. And next, rice, let us see. Rice productivity, 35 million tons. 35 million tons only before 1960. But after 1960, it was reached to 89.5 million tons. 89.5 million tons, because we know already at the time of 1947, in the population explosion we have studied. In the population explosion, by 1900 our Indian population is only 250 million, but at the time of independence 350 million, but at the time of 2000 1 billion. At the time of 1900 year, our population was only 250 million. At 1947, by the time of independence, our Indian population is reached to 350 million. And within 2000 by the 2000 year, by the May, our Indian population reached to 1 billion. Means within that 50 years, how many people are increased? More than 650 million increased. 650 million population is increased within that time only. Within that 50 years, that for 47, 53 years, 650 million population was increased. So the same food material is suppose produced, what is our situation? So scarcity of the food will come. But luckily, fortunately, the green revolution process has been started by Norman E. Borlaug in the world, but in India, it was started by M.S. Swaminathan. M.S. Swaminathan. Norman E. Borlaug, he was the father of green revolution in the entire world. But in our India, who is the father of green revolution? M.S. Swaminathan. Because of him, we people are now eating the food. Because 35 million tons before 1960, it was only productivity. But that population, by 130 crores, today population is 130 crores. So that population for 35 million tons of rice if per year is produced means it is not sufficient. Now it is producing. By the ending of 2000, it was produced, increased up to 89.5 million tons. This much amount of rice was productivity increased. That means almost 54 million tons of rice was increased. And this is wheat was increased was 64 million tons of wheat was increased per year. So this much of difference we have achieved. This is the beautiful example to understand what is the efforts of green revolution. What is the efforts of green revolution we can understand. So at that time population was only about 350 millions. Population this is 350 or 400 millions maximum. But here it is 1 billion, more than 1 billion. Now you see, for this, for example, if the same population, the same amount of food is there, then what is our situation? But it was not there. But this is an imagination, that's all. So this is not a criteria here, right? So now, what we have to understand, before 1960, the productivity of rice in India was, only 35 million tons, but after 2000, it was increased up to 89.5 million tons. This is because of this type of statistical data. This much of 35 to 89 million tons. 35 million tons to 89 million tons of rice increased. So this is achieved by increasing of semi-dwarf varieties of rice. Semi-dwarf varieties of rice, which was created by Norman E. Borlaug. In International Center for Wheat and Maize Improvement. International Center for Wheat and Maize Improvement. In this center, Norman E. Borlaug developed semi-dwarf varieties of wheat. Semi-dwarf varieties of wheat and rice were developed by Norman E. Borlaug. He is the father of Green Revolution. Norman E. Borlaug was the father of Green Revolution. He was the father of Green Revolution. Norman E. Borlaug, he was the father of Green Revolution in the entire world. And he was developed semi-dwarf varieties. Why the semi-dwarf varieties? Because this achievement is because of semi-dwarf varieties of rice and wheat. This achievement. So 35 million tons productivity increased up to 89.5 million tons rice productivity. The wheat productivity 11 million tons in 1960, but by the 2000 year it was increased by 75 million tons. So this much of productivity is possible because of these semi-dwarf varieties. The semi-dwarf varieties of rice and wheat are produced by Norman E. Borlaug, father of Green Revolution, and he was developed these semi-dwarf varieties in International Center for Wheat and Maize Improvement. Later, the semi-dwarf varieties of rice are produced by IR8 and Taichung Native. The semi-dwarf varieties of wheat produced by International Center for Wheat and Maize Improvement. But the semi-dwarf varieties of rice was produced in Philippines, IRRI. In IRRI it was produced. See, this here, semi-dwarf varieties of wheat only produced in this place, in this center, International Center for Wheat and Maize Improvement. In this center, semi-dwarf varieties of wheat are produced. And the semi-dwarf varieties of rice are produced in IRRI. IRRI is nothing but International Rice Research Institute, located in Philippines. International Rice Research Institute located in Philippines. In this center, this semi-dwarf varieties of rice was produced. And this is from Taiwan. Taichung Native is from Taiwan. Taichung Native is the variety of Taiwan, variety of rice from Taiwan. And IR8 is the variety of rice from developed in IRRI, in International Rice Research Institute. International Rice Research Institute. It is located in Philippines. International Rice Research Institute is located in Philippines. So in this International Rice Research Institute, that particular variety is known as IR8. This IR8 is crossed with Taiwan variety Taichung Native, a Taiwan rice variety Taichung Native, and because of these two, this cross and semi-dwarf varieties of rice was produced. Semi-dwarf varieties of rice was produced. The semi-dwarf varieties of rice was produced in IRRI. And semi-dark varieties of wheat was produced in International Center for Wheat and Maize Improvement. Both are produced by Norman E. Borlaug. Norman E. Borlaug. And IRRI, semi-dark varieties of rice was produced by crossing between IR8 and Taichung native. IR8 and Taichung native. So this is IR8 and Taichung native. IR8 is the variety of IRRI and Taichung native is the variety of rice from Taiwan. When these two are crossed, semi-dark varieties of rice were produced. Later, the semi-dark varieties Jaya and Ratna, better semi-dark varieties Jaya and Ratna were produced. Jaya and Ratna, the better varieties of semi-dark varieties. Better semi-dark varieties of rice. Better semi-dark varieties of rice. Semi-dark varieties of rice. Better semi-dark varieties of rice. Better semi-dark varieties of rice are Jaya and Ratna. And next, another one more thing is Sonalika and Kalyan Sona. Sonalika and Kalyan Sona. So Sonalika and Kalyan Sona, these two are Sonalika and Kalyan Sona. Sonalika and Kalyan Sona, these two are Sonalika and Kalyan Sona are high yielding disease resistant varieties of wheat. High yielding disease resistant varieties of wheat. High yielding disease resistant varieties of wheat are Sonalika and Kalyan Sona, very very important. Sonalika and Kalyan Sona, these two are high yielding disease resistant varieties of wheat. High yielding disease resistant varieties of wheat. High yielding disease resistant varieties of wheat. But Jaya and Ratna are better semi-dark varieties of rice. Jaya and Ratna are better semi-dark varieties of rice. Next, let us go for sugarcane. In the sugarcane, the scientific name of sugarcane is Saccharum officinarum. Scientific name of sugarcane is Saccharum officinarum. This is the noble variety of sugarcane which was grown in South India. This is South Indian sugarcane and contains high sugar content. It contains high sugar content. And next one is Saccharum barberi. It is North Indian sugarcane. Saccharum officinarum is South Indian sugarcane which contains high yielding of sugar, and Saccharum barberi is North Indian sugarcane which contains low yield of sugar. But this Saccharum officinarum cannot grow in North India because in the North India at the time of winter season the temperature greatly decreased. The temperature greatly fall, so that because of temperature falling, so that Saccharum officinarum cannot. It is a tropical and noble variety of noble variety of sugar cane. Noble cane, so this cannot grow in that North India because of low temperatures during the winter season. But the Saccharum barberi is able to grow, but Saccharum barberi is able to resist that low temperatures. But that sugar cane contains low variety of sugar, but this contains more amount of sugar yield. So sugar content is more, but cannot grow in North India because of low temperatures. But this is Saccharum barberi is able to grow in North India, but it doesn't contain more sugar yield. So that when the cross is happening in between these two, the scientists are crossed in between these two. So that what happened? The Saccharum officinarum, a new variety of Saccharum officinarum is grown. Saccharum officinarum is grown. This Saccharum officinarum receives some of the genes from Saccharum barberi, modified. Saccharum officinarum is modified, a new variety of sugarcane is produced, but the new variety is nothing but Saccharum officinarum only. The Saccharum officinarum taken some genes from Saccharum barberi. This variety and this variety, what is the difference? Here that low temperature resistant gene came here, that's all. The low temperature resistant gene is there in this Saccharum officinarum. So that when the Saccharum officinarum is crossed with Saccharum barberi, a new variety of Saccharum officinarum is formed which can which can tolerate low temperatures. Now this is growing in North America, North India. This is growing in North India. So this is. And another variety of sugarcane is Saccharum. Another variety of sugarcane is Saccharum spontaneum. Spontaneum. Saccharum spontaneum. Another species of sugarcane is Saccharum spontaneum. The Saccharum spontaneum is high yielding, disease resistant variety of sugarcane. Disease resistant variety of sugarcane. Disease resistant variety of sugarcane. This is about sugarcane. Now let us once again discuss this. Saccharum officinarum grows in South India. It contains more sugar yield. Saccharum barberi grows in North India, and it cannot grow in South India, and it cannot grow in North India. So Saccharum barberi is grown in only North India, but it doesn't contain more sugar yield. So when the cross is happening in between this, Saccharum barberi genes are transferred to Saccharum officinarum, a new variety is formed. That modified variety is now growing in North India, and it is surviving in North India, and it produces more amount of sugar. And a new variety of sugar cane is identified, that is Saccharum spontaneum. Saccharum spontaneum is disease resistant variety of sugar cane.